today we're talking about the true Christian wedding that churches don't want you to know about. The true Christian wedding that churches don't want you to know about. Now you see, everything about the modern white wedding. You have the white wedding dress, the cake, the wedding ring, the bridesmaid, the groomsman, the bouquet, the confetti, like the reception, everything about that. None of that is absolutely necessary. None of that is necessary at all for a Christian wedding. None of that is necessary for a Christian wedding. Don't have that and say you're having a Christian wedding. That is a white wedding. And a white wedding has nothing to do with Christ or scripture. It has something to do with European culture. You see, Africans were brainwashed to see white wedding as a Christian wedding. No. Scriptural wedding goes like this. You find a girl, you ask her to marry you, she says yes. You inform your parents, you leave your parents' home, you have a feast you can afford, and voila, you are married. No pastor or priest is involved. No. No pastor, no priest, no prophet. It is purely a family affair done at the home, not at the church. Now, even the wedding Christ attended in John chapter 2, you read it all the way to verse 10, he was invited as a guest, not as an officiator. God made it simple. It's man that has complicated it. You see, in Europe over the centuries, first the Roman Catholic Church, and then all the breakaway European churches like, the Church of England, the Methodists, the Baptists, they introduced this elaborate white wedding and marketed it as a Christian wedding, purely for financial reasons. The white wedding is more pagan than Christian. Listen, I'm not telling you, I have read scripture from cover to cover in multiple languages. You will never see any wedding done in a church, temple, or synagogue. Isaac married at home. Genesis chapter 24, verse 67. See, I talked about the wedding that Christ attended in John chapter 2, verse 2 all the way to verse 10, which a lot of people like to use to justify white wedding. It was at a home, and Christ himself did not officiate. He was a guest. That is the only thing that they used to deceive people. It is not true. He did not officiate. He was a guest. So in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, God said, a man shall leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife, and the two shall be one flesh. You see, the power a priest, a pastor, a prophet has to say, I now pronounce you man and wife, comes from man, not from God. There is no scriptural authority for that. God himself pronounces you married once your parents consent to your union. It is a family affair. And I've told you before, Genesis 2:24, this is how God defined marriage. A man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. I've told you, I've read scripture from cover to cover, in Hebrew, in Aramaic, in Greek. Scripture has no instance of a wedding being done in a church, a temple, or a synagogue. Like I told you, Isaac married at home. You see that Genesis 24, verse 67. Christ attended a church a wedding at a home, not at a church or a synagogue. John chapter 2, verses 2 to 10. Isaiah was a prophet. His wife was a fellow prophetess. And all he did was that he invited two witnesses, and immediately the woman moved into his home. You see that in Isaiah chapter 8, verses 2 to 3. See, no ceremony. Are you trying to tell me that you are holier than Isaiah or Hosea? Hosea, read Hosea chapter 1, verse 3. Just one verse, and that captured his marriage. God has made marriage easy. It is man that has made it complicated. Like I'm telling you now, the only people involved in a marriage, a Christian marriage, a scriptural marriage, are the man, the woman, and their parents. No pastor, no church, no prophet, no synagogue, no temple. It is a family affair. And I'm telling you, see, this thing is a major earner for a lot of churches and congregations. So they're going to be unhappy that I'm telling you this. But I challenge you, go to your pastor, give him the scripture and say, sir, please, can you show me from this where your authority is to marry me? Show me from this. They can't show you. They're going to be speaking English. They cannot show you. And this scripture is where we get our doctrine from. Scripture is where we get our doctrine from. We get our doctrine from this book, scripture. Now, mine is obviously it's in Aramaic, so it's not in English, but basically, this is where we get our doctrine from. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16. All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is useful for doctrine. Don't get your doctrine from your church. They've made merchandise of you for ages. Now is enough time for you to come to your senses. You want to marry? It should be as simple and inexpensive as possible. Now, if you've watched this and you have questions, you can send me an email, info@renoomokri.com.